Hi there everyone, it's Mike from ubufreeandclear.com with you once again to deliver another mind-expanding, paradigm-busting, and potentially life-saving video for your consideration. Over the last several years, I've noticed many articles in magazines and on websites of mainstream publications that promote anal sex. It's become more and more blatant and obnoxious. Here's a small sample of some online editions I came across. Men's Health Magazine. Women's Health Magazine. You'd think in a health magazine they wouldn't be talking about butt sex. GQ. Maxim. Gwyneth Paltrow likes anal. Next. Redbook. How do I make anal more comfortable? Because it hurts. Cosmopolitan. And Teen Vogue, where they were nice enough to include a diagram for people who have a hard time finding their ass. Sorry, I couldn't resist. That's enough joking around for now. Let's get serious. In these articles and hundreds of others, they attempt to make us believe that interest in anal intercourse is a normal, natural, safe, and healthy desire when nothing could be further from the truth. Men's Health was one of the worst advocates of this unnatural behavior, as they have dozens of articles on the topic on their website. I was amazed to see the heavy promotion and encouragement of men to explore anal sex with their girlfriends and boyfriends. In this video, we'll be covering what's really going on with anal sex. This might be a surprise to you, but it has nothing to do with pleasure or actual sex. Here's a hint. Any interest in anal sex, active or passive, is a symptom of parasitosis or infestation by parasites. Then I'll talk about how is this accomplished where a person becomes enslaved by parasites to become sexually aroused by something that most people find disgusting, vile, and even painful. This as a substitute for the pleasure of vaginal intercourse. We'll be taking a high-resolution view of this phenomena. Next, what happens when parasitosis remains undiagnosed and untreated? It's not a pretty picture, but you really need to know why it's important to regularly treat and eradicate these life forms from your body. And then, we reveal what's the real agenda of this campaign and who really is the target market. And finally, how did I find out about this? Since this knowledge and these facts are not acknowledged by mainstream doctors and scientists, I'll share with you how I was informed of this reality. If you're ready to find out more than the mainstream doctors and scientists have yet to discover, let's get started. So what's really going on with anal sex? It doesn't feel, look, or smell good. Why would anyone want to do it? The answer is, it's parasites living out their life cycle by hijacking the brain and reproductive instincts of the human host with the purpose of reproducing and spreading the parasite to new hosts. It's as simple and complicated as that. Without parasites creating unnatural desires, no healthy human would want to have anything to do with so-called anal sex. By now, you might be asking yourself, how is this accomplished where the human is enslaved and their brain and reproductive system are hijacked and repurposed to facilitate parasite reproduction? Parasites are incredibly intelligent and have been surviving and evolving on Earth longer than humans. They use human language and our memories to manipulate us in astoundingly diabolical ways. They have the capability of making us believe that we cannot get enough sex to satisfy us. This symptom is known as hypersexuality. I've seen this symptom with people who have a clinical diagnosis of bipolar and schizophrenia, and it's common in people who also identify as homosexuals. It's a burden I would never want to carry again. Parasites know and understand more about how to control our bodies and minds than we do. For example, they can make inflicting or receiving pain erotically enjoyable for human hosts. Think sadomasochism and psychopathic personalities. Parasites can make you want to have sex with a dead body or an animal. Let that sink in. Toxoplasma, a parasitic single-celled protozoa, is capable of suppressing the normal human reactions to dangerous situations and can make them seem attractive, interesting, and oftentimes irresistible. Parasites have the ability to stimulate the release of pleasurable neurotransmitters in the presence of pain, so the host thinks it likes what is happening, even though it's painful. Modern science has observed that a higher than expected percentage of people who cause traffic fatalities have a toxoplasma infection. This is because parasites can suppress our survival instincts and replace them with a desire for thrills and exhilaration, which they create when we do what the parasites want us to do. One by one, natural human reactions and responses are suppressed by the parasites and replaced with responses that are optimized for the transmission of parasites. In many people who are hosts to the parasites, encounters with pain, repulsive smells, and filth do not deter them from engaging in behaviors the parasites require for parasite reproduction. This is because parasites can suppress our normal instinctual reactions and make us think that we love what parasites love and hate what parasites hate. They literally hijack our minds. Parasites love butt sex, as entry to this part of the body allows access to the rest of the human host's food supply, organs, and bloodstream, which they can use to travel to any other part of the body, including the brain. Many parasitic life forms lack a reproductive system or even a brain of their own, and so they have developed survival mechanisms to hijack both the brain and reproductive capabilities of the host they have infected in order to survive and reproduce. Let's take a look at an example of how a parasite, in this case a virus, which doesn't have its own reproductive system, can hijack the cell's reproductive functions to reproduce more virus.
Every cell in your body is a tiny factory, constantly making proteins. Your genetic code, or DNA, directs every activity. Protein-making machinery in the cell reads the cell's own DNA and makes sure the cell proteins go where they're needed. Viruses have their own genetic code, but they don't have the machinery to copy their DNA. So viruses need your cell's machinery to reproduce themselves. A virus starts this process by using the keys on its surface to gain entry. Like a Trojan horse, it enters the cell. The virus releases its own DNA into the unsuspecting cell and hijacks the protein-making machinery. Now, this vital cell function becomes an assembly line for new virus particles. No longer in service to your body, the cell now serves the virus, manufacturing thousands of new virus particles, which are released to enslave more cells. Thousands and thousands more.
The strategy of usurping the reproductive capacity of the host is seen throughout the parasite kingdom. There are many videos online that demonstrate this process. Google mind-controlling parasites to see many more examples of this in nature. For example, Toxoplasma gondii is one of the most studied parasitic life forms on the planet. But according to Dr. Sapolsky from Stanford University, mainstream science is only just scratching the surface when it comes to understanding these organisms. Modern scientists tell us that Toxo can live in any mammal, and after the initial infection, Toxo goes dormant with no further symptoms. This is wrong. They are only just beginning to understand the way it affects humans long term. It's estimated that 30 to 60% of the worldwide human population are infected with Toxo. Mice that aren't infected with Toxoplasma hate the smell of cat urine and go to great lengths to avoid it as a function of their natural survival instinct. However, a mouse that has been infected with Toxoplasma, instead of revulsion, seems to be attracted to the smell of cat urine. They go from hating the smell to liking it. When brain scans are performed on infected and uninfected mice, it becomes clear that the toxoplasma-infected mice are sexually attracted to cats. The current wisdom on the subject says that toxoplasma can only sexually reproduce in the gut of a cat, and that the toxo uses other intermediate hosts to wind up in the body of a feline. The toxo causes the mouse to lose their instinctual fear of cats, so that the mouse is easy prey for new cat hosts. The sexually attracted mouse is unafraid of getting close with a cat, so he can be the next meal, and the toxo can reproduce in the gut of the cat. This is the power of toxo to alter the brain of mammals and suppress their natural fear instincts. What happens when parasitosis remains undiagnosed and untreated, as it is with the majority of people who desire anal sex? Parasitosis is a dynamic and progressive condition. The development of further unnatural desires and parasite reproductive enslavement is often seen, but not at all recognized by modern medicine. Think paraphilias, kinky, perverted sex practices like sadomasochism, predatory pedophilia, necrophilia, bestiality, coprophilia, urophilia, among many others. For definitions and a more complete list, see Wikipedia's list of perversions. You may have known people who seem to be obsessed or even addicted to sex. This is known as hypersexuality and is actually a symptom of parasitosis. Parasites will often create a progressive worsening of symptoms that can culminate in a diagnosis of schizophrenia, depression, bipolar disorder, and even suicide, along with drug and alcohol addictions, to name a few. Sometimes a person can have a parasite infection for years and have no symptoms, or the symptoms may not be recognized as such. This is why performing a regular parasite cleanse is so important throughout the course of our life, even when there are no symptoms. If we choose to ignore the parasites, someday something stresses our immune system and the parasites gain strength and start causing symptoms. The longer they remain undetected and untreated, the more havoc they can create in the body and mind of the host. What is the real agenda of these articles, propaganda, and ads that promote anal sex? To put it simply, they're designed to spread the parasites to new hosts. The humans involved in authoring this material are unwitting agents to the active infection of new hosts. The articles have absolutely nothing to do with pleasure or enhancing your sex life. Their entire purpose is to infect more hosts with parasites. What we are witnessing is the parasites using the mass media and authors to give people permission to explore the unnatural desires parasites give to their hosts. They are that advanced and intelligent. These articles are only appealing to someone who is already infested with parasites. An uninfested person would have absolutely no interest or desire to try it. If you happen to find yourself interested in exploring anal, don't do it. Instead, deparasitize yourself now, and in just a short period of time, the fantasies and obsessive thoughts about getting anal with someone will naturally disappear on their own. You should be aware that parasites have been found in all bodily fluids. Tears, blood, saliva, semen, mucus, vaginal secretions, etc. So if you have someone trying to get you to do anal, you should realize that person's parasites are trying to get into you, and the human you are interacting with has had their mind and sex drive hijacked by the parasites. I advise no physical contact with such a person. In an incredibly interesting study of people who are uninfected by toxoplasma, when shown a series of images of people of both genders, they judged the photos of people who tested positive for toxoplasma as more attractive than the photos of people who tested negative for toxoplasma. This demonstrates that parasites can influence our behavior from a distance. And that is diabolically and amazingly advanced intelligence that can perform such a feat, if you ask me. Especially when you consider that toxoplasma is a single-celled protozoa that doesn't even have a brain. And finally, how I came across this knowledge. It came from personal experience, private research, and discovery chronicled in our first video. If you haven't seen it yet, you can click the link in the description below. To make a long story short, after doing some reading in current mainstream science articles about toxoplasma, my partner came up with the hypothesis that the desire for anal sex in humans is 100% parasite-driven. Coincidentally, I happen to have been doing a heavy parasite cleanse, wondering where my normal hypersexuality went to when he shared this brilliant insight with me. Instantaneously upon hearing his hypothesis, I knew it was true. In an instant, almost 30 years of believing and accepting I was gay just completely fell away after I saw how it was parasites driving me to indulge in anal sex, sometimes multiple times per day. Eldred wasn't expecting me to believe or even accept it to be true, but his jaw dropped open when he saw the truth of the hypothesis resonating in my heart and mind. Over the course of the last several years since proving this hypothesis to be true, dozens of men and women have shared with me of their own similar experiences of losing all the unnatural desires for gay and perverted sex after parasite cleansing. And for me, in almost 6 years, I have not had a single recurrence of parasite-driven, unnatural desires for gay sex. At this point in the presentation, I hope that you can clearly see some of the tactics parasites use to get their hosts to spread infection far and wide. For a more in-depth look at the devastation and harm that comes from engaging in this parasite-driven behavior known as anal sex, Google the phrases gay bowel syndrome and gay life expectancy. Healthy human beings have a natural, healthy revulsion to any and all acts that are unnatural perversions and violations of our anatomy. Pain, revulsion, and disgust are our natural defenses to such behavior. If you find yourself interested in or sexually aroused by talk or thoughts of anal sex, you can choose to believe it or not, but the parasites are in control of your mind and body. Interest in anal sex, whether passive or active, is not at all a natural human desire, and you need to eradicate the parasites and the unnatural desires they generate from your body as soon as possible. The cleansing process can take several months, but the benefits are well worth the effort and time invested in eradicating these creatures from our minds and bodies. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk with you all again real soon with more mind-expanding information. Take care.